you've got to know what you're doing. So Hercules took on the majority responsibility for that, and they negotiated all the various agreements, and then we of course negotiated agreements with the World Bank for financing the project. And the World Bank gave, for the first time in its history, a direct loan to a private sector party. They'd never done it before. And they gave it to the Dawood Hercules chemicals, which was a loan of $32 million at 6.25%. In addition to that, USAID invested. They gave $14 million. IFC took 10% of the equity. Hercules took 40, we took 40, and IT took 20, and we gave some to the public. And so the project was to be established. So the signing of those World Bank agreements was July 1968. That was my first job. From graduation, I went straight there. The agreements were signed, we came back, and then the whole project started. I was placed in head office here, Gulf Center, where I am today now. And massive work started. Fluor Corporation were our main EPC contractors, and we have Mitsubishi Tuatsu, there's a Mitsubishi Tuatsu process for the urea, and we had Kellogg for the ammonia. But the main contractor was Fluor Corporation. So they drove the whole process. We had, of course, we also set up what's known as an owners group, which oversees the whole project. So the owners group was composed, of course, of Hercules and ourselves. We oversaw the whole project. The project was completed within time and within budget. So it's 1971, October, when we were supposed to start the project. And guess what happened? Yeah. War with India. And they came and they bombed the place. They actually shelled the project. The Americans took off, they went off to Afghanistan. Obviously, we wanted them out of there. It was our responsibility. And one of the shells came and hit one part of the project. Not serious. But we got one shell which exploded, and we made that a decoration piece. So we got this lovely little, blown up shell, the canister, as a lovely decoration piece. So that was back in 1971. Of course, the project created a huge hype in Lahore. Massive project of this nature coming in, major investment. At that time, it was cutting-edge technology. The largest size you could get in urea processing was 1,000 tons a day, and this was 1,000 tons a day project. So it had its impact on society. Of course, we had changes taking place. You know that, don't you? 1968, who was in power? You can't. 1969? 1972? Wow. So this 3-year period was quite eventful. We had a lot of changes taking place. So Dawood Hercules started. But let me take you back a little bit on how we got there. How we got there is that basically our family was already a business family, undivided India. We had established ourselves as the cotton yard kings of India. Literally, we set the price, we set the market trend. We had 40 branches all over India, and we had a growing business going on. But before we got there, we also had the privilege of going bankrupt. My father was in the business of milch and spices. And one day he comes home, the family says, well, we've got a lot of mirchi, you better start eating it. Because nobody will pass. You have to appreciate. If you want to succeed, you must understand that failure is a fundamental part of life. Now, whether that failure is large or small, is not the issue. issue is, do you learn something from it? And I give an example. When I was at school, I was a prefect, and this little young fellow, by the way, I had all my schooling in English, so I'm not very good at the Urdu language, you know. So this young fellow came along, and he had this golf club in his hand. So I said to him, come here, give me a golf club. Took his golf ball, put it down. And looking over that way, there was the green. And in front of the green, there was a beautiful tree, a massive tree. Now, if you're a good golfer, the question is, how do you skillfully get the ball onto the green anyway? Being a prefect, of course, I'd show off a little. I'd turn around, put it there, whack the ball, beautiful shot. Even today, I remember it. So many years. What a shot. Right over the tree and landed on the green. I said, see, that's how you play golf. I walked away and said, what the heck did you do that? You know, you learn nothing for success. You learn things for failure, not success. Here, you're a perfect golf shot. I learned nothing. If I did a bad shot, it got a right, I said, yeah, the face was open, left, maybe I pulled it this way, I would learn something. Perfect shot, I learned nothing. So our problem is that we are always trying to succeed and do perfect things. Don't enjoy the mistakes. That's where you learn. And that's what's called experience. Success is not experience. Success is a string of failures. Things going wrong. Okay? Now, so, where was I? So we were the Young Kings of India, and then we set up our first Vanaspati ghee factory in Calcutta. And when partition happened, we lost that. Family migrated to Pakistan and established a trading house. So we do trading. What do we do? My father was always mad keen to be an industrialist. That's why we had already started with first industrial investment in Calcutta. When we came over here, Pakistan, of course, brand new country, enormous challenges, no economy, no banking, no nothing. The people, the industry that was here were really run by Hindus, or they run by Sikhs or whatever, and they all took off to India. We had a large, well, relative, very small industrial base, whatever it was, and nobody knew how to run it. So you're talking about just imagine what you're talking about. Really challenging situation. Anyway, around 1948, around 1950, or 49, we were encouraged to go out and set up a textile. So they were giving out licenses for textile. So immediately my two uncles went out to Japan, booked the machines, brought them back, always established without company. The mills went on to become the largest textile mill. We expanded very rapidly, and we became the largest exporters of textiles. Textile and all the export trophies, etc., we were winning the war, etc. From there, that time, the government had set up what's known as the PIDC, the Pakistan Industrial Investment Corporation, in order to develop industry, to take the principal risk, because the country was in its infancy. So they would go out and establish industry, and then they'll sell them off. Now, you have to realize the country, we didn't have the level of sophistication that time we have today, throughout the world. So there wasn't a privatization process, there wasn't any such thing like that. The question of whoever wanted to buy would buy any one of those units. So PIDC is set up here, and it's set up a very competent organization to do this, particularly in Gulab Khan. Brilliant bureaucrat. So the PIDC would sell off units to whoever wanted to buy them. So we got into the acquisition process. Pakistan, we bought Lawrence School. Anything else? No, those two. So it became significant in textiles. Lawrence School, of course, we thought we were running like a cotton mill, only realized that worsted is nothing like cotton. It's a whole different pattern. But anyhow, we bought it. So you had to do something with it. And so, as you know, I'm sure some of you have heard of the name Lawrence School. So we developed a whole concept of Lawrence School, of branding, of quality products, etc. That was back in 1960. Guriwala was born in 1954. Dawood Company started in 1950. So we went on our way. 1960, then of course UConn announced, after discussion with the World Bank, that they want the private sector to be involved in fertilizer, so they started opening the doors to fertilizer marketing. So we were one of the parties who got involved with fertilizer marketing, and we started marketing of fertilizer long before the project. Okay? And also in the 60s. Now, after that, we set up Dow Petroleum in 1968, and PSO today is Dow Petroleum. So in 1960 we set up Dow Petroleum, and obviously we developed a very large industry base. In East Pakistan, we had acquired Karachi Paper Mills Limited. Karachi Paper Mills was a very interesting case. It was a paper mills which had run into the ground, enormous losses, and incapable of repaying the World Bank its loans. And the World Bank was facing this horrible scenario of having to write it off on its books. We bought it, changed it around, brought it to profitability, and we repaid the World Bank every single penny that they had left. Since that day, the World Bank has existed. Obviously, because it saved a lot of people's skin. So that happened. We also then expanded that. We set up a rayon, a cellophane. It's an interesting story too. The cellophane rayon had never been produced from bamboo. So we had the idea, we conceived of the idea that rayon and cellophane could be produced from bamboo. So we got Mitsubishi to do the original research. They not only did the whole original research, proved it could be done, designed the plant, manufactured it, delivered it, and installed it in Chittagong. So we started producing rayon, cellophane also. So by 1967, when we had the opening of that, we had the whole cabinet of Pakistan come down to the opening. That also included the governors of the two provinces, that is East Pakistan and West Pakistan, and all ministers and the UConn itself. And at that time, the group had become $250 million, $35,000. Pakistan at that time, telling you, we were the first Asian island. We were far ahead of anything in the Far East. We were ahead of India. Because, I'll tell you why, when I came back in '68, I took on the responsibility of developing the first Pakistani multinational corporation, setting up all of its policies and procedures, organization structure, compensation system. I was doing it there in Dow Center in 1968. Already we were talking about development of management, moving management personnel from one plant to another, as we saw that there's a possibility of the best talent developing. All of that was going on. And then came the changes, political changes, and the uncertainties that they wrought. And we had, of course, 1971, East Pakistan fell. We lost half our people. We lost everything we had over there, which included from the canal paper, canal rayon, included our shipping, it was an internal shipping arrangement, we had a shipping company that we had. We lost all of our assets out there. We lost everything. Compensation. The state man offered us 10,000 rupees. So we said to them, perhaps you needed more than we do. So with that gone, then the People's Party came into power. End of 1971, wholesale nationalization started. They nationalized our petroleum company, they nationalized our life insurance, assurance, they nationalized that too. And we had challenges. We had a very large family management structure. Our was in Pakistan, our was over here. We as a family had all decided right from the beginning that all of the next generation, each generation, succeeding generation, would go abroad for education. Most of us with MBAs who came back. One was a PhD also, chemical engineering. So we had actually got out of our way to ensure that the next generation would be prepared. When this took place, all of these people had to come back to West Pakistan. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. We got on the last flight, and they made it just in time. Started at the normal flight from East Pakistan to the West. When they got here, the atmosphere was extremely hostile. The People's Party government, I mean, the hostility was absolutely unbelievable. Every turn, every person you met was hostile. Strange. You work, you create jobs, you pay taxes, but people are hostile. Very strange. Right? So, we went through a very difficult period. Both within the country and within the family. Because there weren't enough jobs for everyone. So then, probably the family started. And it's like, who's played the game, musical chairs? Anybody play this game? Those who haven't played, do you know what musical chairs is? Okay, well there's a musical chair. And you know what happened? And so long the music was going on, everybody was going around the number of jobs there were, and when the music stopped, everybody ran for a job. Some of the guys didn't have a job. What happened? They were floating. That's life. Even in families that happened. So we had to have some relations. We had to reduce the manpower. So by 1973, already manpower started to get reduced to the family. By 1973, we go on further to 1976 or so, can you believe it? And my father was able to convince Zulfikar at that time, they gave us a new sanction for fertilizer. The People's Party. So we got this sanction, and we went out and found new partners, brought them in. When we brought them in, we had our negotiations, and then we asked for appointment, of course, to meet the finance minister, no less person than our friend Hussain Dawood. Who knows who Hussain is? Okay. No response, I shut up. Okay. Who knows it? You heard of it? So we went to see him. You know what his response was? His response was, he said to the Americans, I'll meet you, but I will not meet the Dawoods, they stay outside. Okay? We sat outside, the Americans went in, they came out an hour and a half later, and they were red in the face. So we said, what happened? He wouldn't speak. So we ran after them, and finally called them in the money and broke down. I said, what happened? He said, the finance minister told us that, why are you dealing with the Dawood? Deal with the government. We'll give you much better rates. Don't deal with these Joes. The response was that any finance minister can say that, but anybody, their countrymen, you can't trust them. We leave back and back. You can imagine the sense of hostility. That project was finally transferred to the Forges. So we helped the Forges negotiate their agreement with Topso, and they successfully were able to successfully build the plant. But really, that was our project. It doesn't matter. Countrymen. Mr. Bhutto lasted in 1977, and then they had, of course, a significant change. Who came in? The 90-day man. He said, I'll be out in 90 days, and 9 years later, he's still sitting around. So he came in. Biggest problem we had in Pakistan at that time is the fact that Pakistan was going through serious economic difficulties. Ghulam Isaq was the appointed finance minister. He had immense credibility in Washington, stabilized the economy. Fantastic. The mistake that was made is that Ghulam Isaq is a bureaucrat. He knows how to stabilize the economy. He doesn't know how to grow it. They're two different personalities. Anyway, the interesting part was that in the middle of that, Majid moved, who used to be the production secretary. And in those days, you know, always taken over industries. There's a huge hype of how brilliantly they're being managed by the government. All the brilliant results they're bringing. Obviously, every single policy is being turned around and rewritten to favor them. And obviously, it doesn't make much sense to do that. Since they don't own those, so why not? So that's what was going on. And he had a huge affair to celebrate the success of the taken over industry. And he invited Ziaul Haq down there. The whole cabinet came down, including Ghulam Isaq. And Ghulam Isaq gave a very interesting speech there. I've never forgotten. I'm talking about the 80s. And he said in his speech, in 20 years, my ideas of nationalization have never changed. So I asked myself a question, was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto the architect of nationalization, or was it Ghulam Isaq? If you look at Bhutto when he took over, the first picture of Bhutto in power, while he was sitting there, with Ghulam Isaq standing next to him. So I asked myself a question, who was the real architect of nationalization? The second observation from him will tell you who is the real architect. His second observation in the same speech was, never will the commanding heights of the economy ever be returned to the private sector. Never will the commanding heights of the economy ever be returned to the private sector. Who do you think was an architect of nationalization? It's pretty obvious. Okay? That's mid-80s. Just imagine what type of atmosphere. Anyway, so 80s rolled by. We had after that having interim sanctions. One day I was sitting there because at that time Dawood Hercules was being completely raped by the government. They were taking everything away. They took away all the profit of Dawood. And they took it away because they didn't issue an order, they ordered it verbally that you will have a fixed rate of return, and anything beyond that will go to the government. And they didn't even give it to us in writing. So first of all, they said you get a 20% return, and then they unilaterally changed to 15%. That's all they gave. 15% return. We're the only company in the whole country suffered. So we had to struggle with that, had to fight and go to the government, So my father and I went to the government once to talk to Mr. H.U. Bail, Secretary General, 8 years. Again in the 80s. While we were sitting there, you know, we made our brief and our presentation. Right at the end, my father turned around and said to him, "Beg sir, हमारे family tutoring, family's breaking up." Beg sir looked and said, "ये तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. Government policy है आप लोगों को." Can you imagine the government country can actually go on to complete breakup of families and groups? And that's exactly what the policy was. He said so. I heard it. Yes. That's second hand. We didn't get any justice given to us by General Zia. Never happened. And so, 1986, I think it was, finally decided to decontrol fertilizer, and then, you know, then we were able to start performing and start developing. In the 80s, we went into the 90s, we did performing. Oh. You guys interested in this? You want to see some of the record on this? You sure? I give it to you on the condition you keep listening. Don't really read it. I'll tell you what page to read. We give you a copy each, just to help you. Only this page. The rest of the reading you can do it here at home. Okay? I'm not giving this to you because I'm promoting the group. I'm giving this to you for information. Alright? So this is my copy. Okay, I got it. Okay. This page only. For the moment. All right? We'll just go through the page. Everybody on the right page?